So long, farewell. Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.
What is this, New Year's Eve, or what is this?
Well, I started it off that way because this is our last show together. Except it's not, because I can't quit him. And we've decided that next year, in 2022, Michael and I will do 4 of these together. Not one every month, but one every quarter. So don't despair. Oh, by the way, I'm Frances Reaves.
And I'm Michael Miller, here to be entertained by counselor, attorney Frances Reaves.
You forgot author.
An author.
And newly minted singer.
Right, there you go. I'm right here. So let's talk about, parentsyourparents.com. You wrote a book, 2-minute warning.
2-minute warning, boomers booming.
All right. And so let's talk about that 2-minute warning thing. Lots of people not familiar with that term, but it's 2-minute warning for football for sure.
Yeah.
Is it basketball too?
Basketball has a warning.
Right.
I don't think it's called the 2-minute warning.
So, which is, hey, teams, we want you to know the end of the game is near.
Yeah.
All right.
And it becomes time management.
Yes. And then you got to figure out what you want to do.
Right. To win the game.
Yes.
So the idea is to die winning, to go down winning. So here's the issue. The issue is we will die, whether we believe it or not. And a lot of people don't believe it. I had a show the other day with Leslie Marenko, and we were talking about someone like Aretha Franklin. Aretha Franklin had pancreatic cancer. She didn't prepare. She didn't prepare to die because she didn't believe she was going to die. I mean, she knew she was going to die, but she didn't prepare. But I will say she did do everything else I have in my book, which is live your best life ever. Because as you say, Mr. Miller, you say, the kids are gone and the last dog died.
Amen.
It is my turn.
So we're going to run that thing across the bottom in a minute, please, Michael. So my son brought over his dog,
You're newly a fiance.
Yes, and with his fiance, yes. And so they wonderful picture. I think you saw it when down in Africa.
Yeah.
As he was kneeling on one knee, handing the ring. I go, I guess this means you're going to get married, huh? So it brings the dog over. We used to have 6 dogs in the house in Tune, and I'm watching every move this dog is making. No, that's a new. Don't go on the carpet. No, not on the couch. Just stay in the corner and don't move. And that wasn't the grandchildren, or maybe it was.
Well, and Michael, we have a sponsor.
We do. Oh, yes.
Yeah, we have a sponsor for this show. I'm so excited. Yeah. Thank you, OG
Paint on Bird Road.
On Bird Road.
Peggy Sue and family.
Yeah. So this is very exciting. And family is grandmother, mother, and son.
Yep.
Right? They're all still there going at it. I love that. Yep. That's living your best life ever.
Yes. So there we are. The people want to go to OG Paint. And they've been providing us with paint for a number of years. They've come out. They've given us designs to do. They're willing to go to your house, all right, to help you select the best paint for you.
Yeah, we discussed this before the show. They'll actually come out, tell you what kind of paint, what you need to do to the wall so the paint will stay on. And as it happens, as soon as I get my dryer and my microwave and everything else fixed that went down this week, I'm calling them for the 2 bedrooms.
All right. So, an interesting thing that's happened, we're trying to get another computer for our office, a business computer. So we speak to our IT guy. He usually goes to a middle guy. He says, I can't help you because it's going to take a long time. So we spoke to Dell. It was something off the shelf, right? 6 weeks. 6 weeks to get that computer.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to be borrowing that dryer of my friends for a long time.
You can hook up a clothesline on your patio. Yeah. What floor are you on?
I'm the president of the board.
It'd be perfect. Look what she's
doing. 6th floor and all the other condos. And, we're on one side of the island has condos on it and everybody can see it. So, I will say my underwear is colored, so it's not all bad.
Oh my goodness. Michael, from behind the cameras, we knew it was going to happen. So what do they call the clothes rings? You put your
the clips. Yeah, clothes clips.
So prior to this, we had Seth. What was Seth's last name? What is it, babe? Bramson. He is an old restaurant guy. He's a historian. So he was in here earlier singing the Royal Castle song.
Oh.
Royal Castle, and he did the whole tune.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't quite remember, but if I listened to it long enough, we would see that he brought in Royal Castle plates, which now I remember them.
The Royal
I was
Castle.
very young, right?
Yeah.
Birch beer, root beer was 5 cents, and hamburgers were 15. Go to Arbetter's, guy. They got great hot dogs over there.
You know the one I remember? Hold the pickle, hold the lettuce. Special orders don't upset us. Burger King.
Yeah, and where are all those places now, and how they're serving food?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with how they're moving most of their food now?
It's all
Drive-through.
Drive-through. You know, in fact, I tried to go outside at a Burger King and the door was locked. So I walked up to the drive-through.
You're one of those. No, ma'am, you have to be on a cart, a golf cart, or a skateboard.
I know. Oh, you know, skateboard reminds me, Michael. Now, this is also living your best life because I see some older, not 70 and 80, but 50 and 60-year-olds on those. This one guy is on an electric skateboard. And, you know, I run every day over by Crandon Park.
You can meet her over there, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So at any rate, and this guy, he is so, I mean, first of all, I don't understand how you're burning calories.
These are not little skateboards.
No, they're big skateboards. And he has one of those like Bose speakers on it in between his legs so that you hear whatever he's hearing when he comes by you.
I'm glad not what they're seeing. All right. So is that a motorized one?
It's a motorized one. And I don't understand it because you're building core, right? Because you have to stand up a certain way, but you're not exercising. You're not pushing yourself.
Well, there's a gentleman. His name is Omar. He does a show here. He shows up one day with one of those boards.
Okay.
Motorized. The board is about this long.
Yeah,
and it actually has a big T thing on it. And it goes like 40 miles an hour.
And they use, you should see now, they put them on sidewalks. I'm like, you can't have these on sidewalks. I mean, you're going to maybe not kill a motorist, but a pedestrian.
So certainly that's one of the things that's happening out between more people walking and jogging and bicycles.
Right.
And bigger sidewalks. The question is, who gets to go on the sidewalk?
Well, the law's pretty clear on that.
Which is?
Well, pedestrians have the right of way on a sidewalk.
Right. And the cyclists are supposed to do what?
They're supposed to, in other words, they can't make, although they do, they can't make a pedestrian move. They have to move around the pedestrian. And if they have to stop if they're impeding a pedestrian's way.
Because they, from what I've gathered, they are considered a vehicle.
Right.
Right. And so whenever I drive a big truck, so whenever I see these guys on a bicycle and I have to turn right, I go like 3 blocks past them because I'm afraid I'm going to miss them.
Oh, I know.
And it's,
it scares me.
Yes.
Even in the bike lanes, where there's bike lanes, if I'm making a right or a left, they have the right of way. But I'll tell you what really scares me. Early in the morning, if I have to be in my car, like I take this exercise class. So at around 6:15 a.m., I drive to where it's an outdoor class. I drive to where the outdoor class is going to be. And then I walk back to Starbucks to get my Starbucks to start my walk. But, and we don't get that green light for very long. So one time I was going out and I had the green. So of course I sped up a little bit because it doesn't stay. And I almost hit 2 bicyclists who'd run the red light. And because it's dark. Now I had headlights on and they might've had their little something on, but would I have been in the right? Yes. Could they have sued me? They could have sued me, but they weren't going to get anything, not in Florida. But who would live with the guilt? That's the issue.
Let's talk about guilt. All right. Michael, can we run that thing a little bit more across the bottom?
Yeah.
So there was a tragedy
Paint.
in New Mexico where I've already forgotten his name, fortunately. He accepted a gun. It was a movie for Russ that was being made.
Oh, yeah. Alec Baldwin. He was an actor, right? And he was handed a gun. Cold gun, all right? And there happened to be a bullet in it. The person that was holding the gun did not check to see if there were any rounds in it because he believed the person before him. had done that.
Had done that. The actor shot and killed one person,
Injured the other.
and injured the other.
Hit the director and then went back to the cinematographer. She was the one behind the camera. So what it did is it flinched, it flinched him, right? And the trajectory led it into her stomach.
So was she in the picture, in the scene?
No. It's like if you were the director, she was behind you. In other words, you're there, and at that point, Alec Baldwin, they were just rehearsing the scene. So it's not like, she was even filming. She was just looking at the angles from, and the reason she's standing behind the director, of course, is because she wants to see what he wants to see in the picture. So it glanced his arm.
But when he was aiming the gun, was that practicing shooting
somebody?
But
Right.
that somebody wasn't there.
Right.
So he happened to move it off.
No, in other words, I know this because I was an usher at Adrian Arst when I first came back to Florida.
Did I see you there last week? Thank you for coming today.
Thank
you. That's over there.
But
may I take you to your seat?
The safety on the set, and it's the same thing when you're shooting on a stage or fighting. You have to practice those. You have to practice it so that no one's injured. So what he was doing is he was just practicing his draw so that it looked more real. And I haven't seen, I don't know if there was anybody filming at that point, but I don't know whether he went like this or just like
was
this.
Was he aiming at her?
Well, he was aiming at the camera.
Oh, the camera he was shooting towards.
Okay. Yeah, and she had the camera.
Okay. So I've been asking some gun advocates who have a lot of them have the same position. Mm-hmm. Then you have other people on the other side, and I'd like to talk about it for a second.
I'd love to.
So if you borrow somebody's car, mm-hmm. and he says there's plenty of gas in it, mm-hmm. and then 4 blocks later you run out of gas,
right?
Because you didn't check because you were
you
just
said there
told.
was plenty of gas.
So the question is really who's responsible for these ultimately for that? I'm not talking about civil liability. I'm talking about criminal liability. In this case, do you think that ultimately that he is going to be charged with something, or the person that gave it to them? And what might that be if he was going to be charged?
Well, here's the thing. I think they will give him, I think if they're going to charge the person who is in charge of it, right? I think they'll also charge Mr. Baldwin. I do, because he's the one who shot, even though there's no doubt it was an accident. There was no intention. And I think that's called like involuntary manslaughter. You had no idea, but you did kill someone.
So let me ask you, if when you're driving down the street and you do something and you kill somebody and you didn't mean to do it,
yeah,
right?
That's vehicular manslaughter.
Right? And you didn't mean to do it. It's not like you weren't reckless. Something happened.
Right. Yeah.
And so when I look at it, I wonder, does the government have an obligation to send a message to every gun holder in the world? All right. If you do that, all right.
And there's a bullet in there.
And there's a bullet in there, all right. You need to be held responsible for what you did. You think you would have gone like this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right. Well, and not only that, it's the same thing when you're hunting. If you shoot a person, you're going to.
You son?
Well, my husband does.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
Right.
She's married, guys.
Well,
there's your end.
At any rate, if you shoot another person who's in the woods while you're hunting, it's still involuntary manslaughter. I mean, you're not allowed to take a life, period. The only people who can take a life is the government, and of course, if you believe in God.
So some of the people I talked to were hunters, and there's a protocol for the hunters, mm-hmm. which is when they unload the ammunition and when they load it.
Exactly.
So that you can go screw up all you want, but we know that all the guns are over there, the ammunition's over
Mhm.
there. You're not going to bring it here and play with that. And I know it's a terrible tragedy, but I think that people have to be held accountable.
Well, they do.
All right.
And
And
I think her family's going to sue everybody as well. I mean, there's all sorts of stories going on around that set, but it's the same thing. If you're in a car and this happened to Tipper and Al Gore.
yeah, he shot somebody.
No, this is a car. What happened was they were leaving the Orioles baseball, and their youngest son ran out into the street, and a car hit him, and it injured him very badly. They weren't sure he was going to live through it, but it was totally the kid's fault. In other words, the kid ran out into traffic. Now, in a case like that, and that was Maryland, which isn't a comparative negligence state. In a case like that, there's no doubt that it wasn't the driver's fault, and he wasn't ticketed. And in fact, the Gores were really kind of lovely about it, other than it was their son. I mean, oh my God. But the good news is the kid lived, everybody lived happily ever after, but that driver still had, oh my God. I mean, that's the really bad part. And yes, I mean, I don't know, like if I were handed a gun and I was told it was cold, I'm confident I would have done exactly what Alec Baldwin did. I would have just gone with the scene, right? Because even though I've taken shooting courses and I have my concealed carry, I don't know what a bullet looks like. I mean, I know more. You can show me a bullet versus a blank. And I've seen that on the news, they show you this little dot. I'm like, okay.
Hindsight is always wonderful to look back. Oh,
Yeah.
they should have done this. They should have done that. And all that's fine and dandy.
But they didn't.
Right.
They didn't. No, and he is the executive producer on that film. So just in that role alone, he's going to, first of all, they're not finishing the movie, right? So all that money's gone. Plus, they are going to have to pay for the loss of a life, and we don't know what else.
Yeah, when I was 12, 13 years old, I was at the Miami Serpentarium when they used to be on US 1. And I was very friendly with the crowd there. And so I was in the back, and one of the young guys who was working there was in another part of the back room, and there was a gun sitting over here. And I picked it up.
You did.
And I aimed it at him when he came around the corner.
Yeah.
And he just said to me, "That's loaded." All right. And I don't know if I would have pulled the trigger, but probably. All right. So it was only a couple seconds away from doing that. So I've always been extremely cautious with that.
Yeah, I'm
right?
scared of guns.
Right. There are people that I know if somebody says, "Can I see your gun?" They go, he opens it up, he empties out all the things, he shows it to them, put your finger in each one so you can see and then he hands it to
That's
them.
exactly how my husband is. He has a loaded gun next to his side of the bed. I don't. I mean, even though I've taken the course and all of that, and let me tell you, when you're shooting at targets, they are so careful on those ranges. I mean, you pick up a gun when they've said they have codes for everything. When they've given you the code that you have to step away, you pick up a gun. I mean, you're told you have to leave now. I mean, either you follow the rules or you're not welcome back. I mean, because the insurance alone for those places, I can't even imagine what they have to pay. But they don't want any accidents because they're lethal. I mean, that's the issue with a gun. But look, a car is also lethal. That's why the pedestrian always has the right of way. In other words, if it's between the pedestrian and the car, it's going to be the pedestrian, because the pedestrian won't kill the car, but the car could kill the pedestrian.
So the next time you I don't get angry at the cyclists anymore. I realize I have to be in charge of that.
Yeah,
because so what if they're wrong and you hit them? What difference does that make, right? You still have this collision there. So anyway, I wish the best to the families there, and I'm sure in 6 months or 3 years, somewhere in there,
it'll all be over. Yeah. But still, those two little kids don't have a mom.
I know. Just thinking about that, right, is just tremendous.
I have to say, and I don't mean this as a slam against men or fathers at all, but losing a mother is a much more difficult thing for children than losing a father. And I don't know why that is, but I had several girlfriends who died of breast cancer in their 40s, and their kids were 11, 12, 13. And, you know, it was tough.
Yep.
Dad's dad. It's,
I know the function of the big daddy bear.
yeah.
Right
Yeah.
out. Okay.
Yeah. Dad's home.
So what? All right. So there are, speaking of COVID, 140,000 children whose caregivers are gone. Right?
Wow.
And
mothers.
and
Yeah.
and there are lots of stressful moments and a lot of anxiety. And somebody texted me the other day, Michael, I need your help. I never heard that before like that. I called. Well, the guy's daughter was all cracked up and came after with a knife. So the daughter is around 18. Then I get a call from somebody else. The son has migraines, and he looked on the computer. What's the overdose on migraine medicine? Took 5, whatever it was, wound up in the hospital, tried to kill himself or herself.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so it is when you look at that stress that's going on. All right, now later this week, I think either tomorrow or on Monday, we have some psychologists that are coming in to talk about the stress that's on people.
Well, our producer Michael will love that.
Yes, absolutely. And so as we're moving out of the pandemic, and we realize that we're not going to die from the bombshells, if you will, and we
Right.
start feeling this freedom, all those feelings start to come in. How did I get through it? What about all the stuff that I've been pushing down for the last year and a half, and it all comes back up?
Yeah.
And so I think that each of us, including the 3 people in the room here, need to be acutely aware of when that happens, that it's a normal feeling about like I survived, and there'll be perhaps some survivor's guilt in there, and how come this and how come that?
There will, and I think each one of us. It was funny with my walking partner today. She self-diagnoses herself and goes off and on medication without thinking about the ramifications. She was on an antidepressant, an old one called Celexa, and she just decided it was giving her tachycardia. Well, tachycardia is when your heart beats quickly. Well, I mean, here's the issue. You're also taking this and you're also taking that. And oh, by the way, you're also taking NyQuil because you have a cold and want to sleep at night. It's usually the over-the-counter drugs that are the bad interactors. And so it's like, what is it? You call it cold turkey on the antidepressant. Well, that alone can kill you. You can go, just kill yourself. And I'm just like, you have to use, you have to call the doctor for that.
So if I've got a runny nose.
Well, you're a nurse.
All right. So Dayquil gives me tachycardia. What's the one to clean your nose? You drink it. It breaks up.
Oh, yeah.
And I tried them all, and you know what? Every time we do it, like 2 days later, there it goes again. Oh my! Right. So you're 100% right. You got all this stuff that goes in there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the seniors that are out there, whatever age that is, and there's 7 million people that died in the United States. Right. So sometimes now the seniors that are alive are missing children and grandchildren.
Right.
And they're not feeling too good right about now.
Well, also, Michael, I don't know if I talked about this on the show, but one of my clients, my first, she was the woman who I took from a house that was falling down around her, and she had 2 caretakers, and she'd run out of money because her daughter had taken it, and yada yada yada. So I put her into Miami Jewish, and one of the caretakers went with her, and she came 3 times a week to visit her. And the caretaker gave her breakthrough COVID. So she went to Mount Sinai first. She was in a little one bedroom apartment. She went to Mount Sinai first, spent about 5 or 6 days there. And then when the fever went down, she went and quarantined back at Miami Jewish, where she lived. And then after quarantine, which I believe is 10 days to 2 weeks, she went into rehab for another 2 to 3 weeks, which gives you 6 or 7 weeks of isolation. I couldn't see her. No one could see her. And so then finally, when she was in rehab out of isolation, I could at least FaceTime with her. And I watched on FaceTime her get more anxious. I mean, at first, she was in the bed. Then she was having these tics, and then and then she was going like this. And I'm watching this happen, and I'm just like, get her out of there, get her out of there. I mean, I wanted to call the chief medical officer and say, there's got to be something you can do here. And then when she got out, she couldn't go back to her 1-bedroom place. She had to go into the memory care unit now because she was totally done. She couldn't take care of herself anymore. Now, since that time, that was about 2 or 3 months ago, has she gotten better? Yeah, she's gotten better, but she won't sing with me. She won't watch television anymore. If I don't wear a hat, she gets very angry with me. She still has scratching on her face. Everybody is treating the eyes. I'm like, it's not the eyes. She's anxious. She's just, and I think to myself, what kind of quality of life is that? I mean, so it's not just surviving it, it's how you survive it.
And Michael, if you could run that across the bottom again. And
OG.
All right. So imagine the older folks that are feeling that anxiety, that are feeling that separation, that isolation, the cancellation of so many things in their lives, and for a long time, masks. Right?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough for folks to be able to handle that. And when you talk about the quality of life, let's say it's a what we would say at age 60, that's a terrible quality of life. But maybe at that age, they're saying, well, this is okay. But at what point, when they are no longer able to make health decisions for themselves, right, does a provider change the kind of care that they give them?
Well, that's it. I want to change the entire system, but I can't.
But there's a driving force within, I think, most live things to survive. And we just pulled up a whole bunch of banana trees. See, put down the dirt, put down the dust. Sure enough, they're coming back. They're coming back, all right?
Oops, there goes another banana tree.
Got to dig it up again. Oh, pop up over there. Or tomatoes. If you plant tomatoes and throw the tomatoes out, a year later, they're popping up. So nature wants to survive.
Yeah,
right?
nature wants
but
to
then
survive.
There's something that ultimately occurs, whatever that is, it says, okay, that it's all over. And certainly there have been, when people are able to make health decisions for themselves, and Jack Kevorkian was probably 25 years ahead of his time.
Ahead of his time.
He went to prison, for a while for doing that.
I remember.
So it gets to the point where if somebody is incapacitated, family members have to make a decision whether to do not provide life. I forget what the term is.
Yeah.
If you have CPR,
DNR, do not resuscitate order. Choose between sending them to the hospital. Again, I just had this happen with a client. The husband she kept getting pneumonia, and because she was really sick. And the last time they called and they said, she's got to go to the hospital. He said, no, she's going into hospice. I'm not going to send her back to the hospital again.
And at-home care is really expensive.
At-home care, a minimum of 24/7 care, a minimum. And that's if you strike a bargain with 1 or 2 people, is $50,000 a year. You have to have, depending on how much you want to leave people, of course, you have to have $1 million in assets, plus close to $100,000 coming in to have 24-hour care 365 days of the year.
Wow.
Because you have to have a place to live, right? Yeah. And you have a place for them to stay. They have to have a bedroom. You have to feed them. You have to feed yourself.
I was fortunate years ago to buy long-term health care. When my father had a stroke, that was 20 years ago at this point, I said, we got to buy this.
Yeah.
So we bought it for the whole family, and it's like, and I don't know what it is now, probably $7,000 or $8,000 or $10,000 a month.
But it's for the whole family. Yeah.
And all of us bought it because you realize once you start paying for somebody else's care, extra stress that it causes and all those ill feelings and thoughts you have about them.
Resentments.
Yes. You're taking my children's money. I have to spend it over here. Why don't you just go ahead and die? It would
Right.
be easier, right? And so my father had a stroke. He lived for 15 years after. He lived with us for 5 years, and then we moved him somewhere else, and somewhere else. And finally, when he was not able to walk around, I was thankful because every time I'd see him walk,
You'd be scared.
and it's like, yeah, he's going to fall. He's going to fall.
Yeah.
You know, and you can see it.
Yeah.
And then, so he winds up going to a place, and I would go visit him, and he could talk a little bit. And then just one day, they called and they said, your father died. I said, okay. But we already had a plan what to do.
Yeah.
Which was, listen, when we get the call, whenever that is, all right?
Yeah.
I'm going to continue what I'm doing. You need to go do something. Okay, great. I had not worn a tie in 3 years. A particular Monday morning, I'm wearing a tie at breakfast. All right? I'd not worn it in 3 years. I get a call. Your father died. So I called my brother and said, listen, I'm going to go do our sales meeting, which is in a half an hour. I'm going to go do that once you make arrangements. An hour and a half later, done with the sales meeting, went down. The body was already at the funeral home. And it was perfect because we had planned it ahead of time.
Right.
And I think that's part of this whole process, so you're not completely stressed out. Just like if you have a hurricane plan, you go, okay, do I have this? And when you have a baby, the doctor tells you, listen, have your bag at the front door.
Right.
So you're just going to grab it and you're going to go.
Right.
So,
well, I preach that. I preach that you should know exactly who's going to pick you up when you die. Because if you're in a home, they're going to make you do that anyway. But otherwise, I mean, when mom died, was it mom? Yeah, it was mom who died at 1:10 a.m. in the morning. So they called me to let me know. And I said, thank you. And I was in Atlanta, staying in my brother's house. And I didn't even, and they said to me, you're going to have to make arrangements. I said, no, just go ahead and call the name of the funeral home and they'll come. They already know. Yeah. And that's what they did. Now the reason we learned this is because my nephew was getting married and we were all going to the wedding, except for mom and dad. Mom, of course, couldn't, and dad had just gotten sick. And it's my one regret of that whole time in Atlanta. I should have just hired someone to go with my father because I miss him in every one of those family pictures. But nevertheless, he stayed in Atlanta too. And I said to my brother, I said, Matt, you know, mom will die because we're all at the wedding without her. So let's just go make sure in case she does, we can stay at the wedding. And so we went to that funeral home and we made all the plans. And that's what I've done for every one of my clients. This wonderful funeral home. There's several, as you know. In January, I'm interviewing
Don.
Yeah, but his daughter, Crystal.
Yeah, Crystal Van Orsdale.
Yeah, Crystal Van Orsdale.
Three generations now.
Yeah, 3 generations. So
3 or 4. Yeah.
So I just call them. You give them a credit card. Nothing happens until the death occurs. But then I went back to sleep. It was like, okay, mom's gone. We knew she was dying. She was in hospice. All you had to do was look at her. And it was like, okay, that's over for dad. Now I have to worry about dad. But I didn't even go tell my brother. I told him the next morning because there was nothing to do. Yep. And no one dies at a convenient time.
So let's talk about on the other side of that. So there's a place in our lovely state of Florida, up the coast a bit, where there's a lot of seniors living. The name of that place is The Villages.
The Villages.
And as we wrap up, maybe we could wrap up the way
with sex.
We could.
Sex.
So a year ago, we had a glass divider here when I first met you. We were actually sitting a little closer. Do you remember what you said to me?
I did.
Right.
I said.
Go ahead. What we said, we're going to wrap it up with this.
So, I told Michael, and this is a true story, that seniors have sex too.
And so I raised my hand and I said, so do I have to wait 5 years? And on that, we're going to wrap it up. Always a pleasure. Francis Reaves, an attorney for seniors and for everyone. Congratulations on your book. The 2-minute warning.
Right. And you'll still see me every month because Michael has a show. He's given me a show. Isn't that nice?
So
And then 4 times a week, month, year.
Week, month. Anyway, congratulations. You've earned it, folks. Thanks very much. And Michael Fernandez, thank you for producing the show.
Thank
again.
you, Michael.
This is Live with Miami's Community
And
News.
thank you, OG Paint Store.
Oh, my goodness. Way to go.
995 Bird Road. You guys are great. I can hardly wait till you come to my house.
All right, folks, thanks very much for joining us. Appreciate it. Have a great day.